Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Masterclass. It's the 13th of September, and we are reading on in productive failure. It happens to be a stage where we have decided that now we are ready to design productive failure. And all this while we were preparing, how did we start? We started simply that you have to understand what productive failure is. So you suddenly realize that there's an effect somewhere, and then the awareness comes. And finally, you go on to assembly. So you activate, you become aware, you see the effect, which is the boost, and you come to the assembly phase. So any effect you notice is happening because of productive failure. That's the first step, which means you're becoming aware of learning through experience, what you call experiential learning. And next is to use that effect of experiential learning to give learning a boost, the able stages which we discussed in the awareness phase, and finally the assembly phase. So the four phases we have often repeated. I hope that's very clear. Last time we actually were doing designing of productive failure. And when we were doing productive failure, we talked of good task and bad task, if some of you remember. And when we were talking of good task and bad task, there was some fantastic feedback in the WhatsApp conversation of good task and bad task. Do we all see the screen? Can we have a yes or a no so that the screen's clear and I can move on? If you remember, we were somewhere here talking about good task and bad task on figure 7.2. And when we were doing this, we also saw that figure 7.2, there are examples in your WhatsApp. There's a very beautiful conversation there. Thank you for posting that. And I'm so happy that some of you actually started using the WhatsApp conversation. You are reading there. Thank you, Rajini, for trying to explain the four phases. Again, you explained about relevance, inclusion, practicality, moderate, positivity. Very good. The comparison with bad task and a good task was indeed very good. Thank you for all you do, and I love your energy. Keep it up. Let's give a hand to Rajini for the two posts, for the courage to post. There is a book called Courage to Teach, but now I'm talking of courage to post. And finally, in the conversation in WhatsApp, we've also been posting some posts. And these posts are coming to you from Psycho Cybernetics 360. If some of you read them and you like them, please comment and tell us in the WhatsApp chat. I try and publish some. I don't want to overdo it because I can publish every day. I publish 2 to 3 a week with the hope that you will read them. And if nothing else, that could become your weekly reading. 3, 4 of those cybernetics posts by Maxwell Maltz. So that could be a good task, reading the posts. Some of us have figured out what is a good task and a bad task. So let's go on. Before reading further, it might be good if you spend some time comparing and contrasting the good and the bad tasks and generate your own list of features that you deem make good task and bad task bad. Remember, the goal of these tasks is for novices to generate and explore solutions that will prepare them for learning from subsequent instruction. It is against this preparatory goal that the two tasks ought to be compared. Once you have generated about 5 to 7 features, read on. To be effective, productive failure tasks should include the following 7 features, which often take 2 to 3 iterations to develop. Feature 1, keep it challenging but accessible. For someone who does not know concept of standard deviation, to solve the problem, both tasks are challenging, the good one and the bad one, the Amy and Ben story. However, the bad example is not accessible because the novice may not have even heard of the term standard deviation, let alone know what it is. Hence, they are likely to simply give up and not produce anything. In contrast, the good task remains accessible because there is no mention of technical or formal terms like specification, relevance, contextual, incremental, facilitation, If you look at the meaning of the word consistency, now when you are looking to design productive failure, it is important to design an exercise. It's like someone asked Jugjeev sir in My Good School the other day, how do you choose your books for My Good School? So Jugjeev sir said two, three things. He says there has to be general acceptance, it has to be widely accessible. Yes, it has to be economical, it has to have a message, it has to have learning, and yet it must focus on the joy of reading. So there was without mention standard deviation must be so put that everyone can larger context can be there. So feature two, contextualize. Comparing the good and bad task, we can also see that the good task contextualizes the problem better than the bad task. It sets up a relatable context of comparing two athletes and situates the need for using mathematics to solve the problem. Giving a proper context or a situation often helps learners make better sense. It anchors their learning. A good task should be a problem or challenge or something that needs resolution. And even better, if something the learner can relate to, in this case, spotting context. By contextualizing the challenge, learners explore more aspects of the problem and are given tools to evaluate their progress. Okay, feature three, admit multiple solutions and representations. Notice how the bad task invites one solution, implicitly the normative solution. In contrast, the good task expressively invites novices to generate multiple ways of solving the problem. Not just one way, as in the bad task, but multiple ways. I'll pause here. So often in your class, when you ask a question, everyone answers it differently. And you have to think. Now, when you normally ask a question, you define an answer in your head. Now, that is a challenge. When you ask a question in the class, you will get different answers. Don't at the outright think that answer is wrong because it does not conform to the answer which you have in mind. And that's how productive failure works better. So all the answers that come to you beyond the mischievous and the obvious wrong ones, which you may find from some exciting young people in your class, it's important to pay heed to every answer you get and then understand, was my question perhaps the right one or did I ask the right way? That is your productive failure. To facilitate students' understanding of the target concept and its relationship with related concepts, Masterclass provides structured examples related concepts the task. A good task allows students to take baby steps, even if they are unable to find the correct solutions. They should be able to make gradual progress towards meaningful approaches to solving the challenges. This multiplicity is critical because, as we saw earlier, even though student solutions are in general typically erroneous, they often include valid features and ideas, the Lego blocks that can be bootstrapped for learning. Another reason why multiplicity is critical is that it allows for wider activation of relevant prior knowledge, as we saw in chapter 3. Research shows that a wider activation prepares the learner to learn from subsequent instruction. Feature 4. Create an effective draw. To encourage people to persist in these challenging problems, the task should be engaging and draw the learner in. The good task does that better than the bad task. And it does so in several ways that we were collectively termed correlative properties by psychologist Daniel Berline in 1950s, who was one of the leading scientists in the study of curiosity. So there's a Berline study in 1954 and 1960. These properties include, but are not limited to, novelty, intuitiveness, uncertainty, and conflict, which come together to create a powerful active draw. Fuel situational interest and curiosity, making the learner engaged and persist in the task. Novelty. A good task should feel as if you have never seen something like this before. It feels new, something unfamiliar, even unconventional, which piques interest. Intuitiveness, using intuitive language and inviting intuitive and informal ways of reasoning motivates novices to engage with the tasks. As we already noted, language that closely approximates the intended meaning. Uncertainty. Although there are many ideas or solutions one could explore, it should not be immediately obvious which ones would work. This sense of uncertainty can spark the novice's curiosity, making them more interested in finding the right solutions and curious about the correct one. Conflict. A good task creates a conflict or in for example, one might initially think of a certain idea or a solution, but then when you actually try it, you realize that it doesn't work. You reach an impasse or a failure, creating a knowledge gap, as well as an awareness of that gap. In addition to the cognitive benefits of awareness of the knowledge gap, a good task also provides the affirmative benefit of stimulating your interest and keeping you in the game. It pushes you to reassess your approach and try different strategies. Feature 5. Use contrasting cases. The bad task uses only one, that of Amy, and the novice has to make sense of the one set of numbers to solve the problem. As you can imagine, it is hard to make sense from just one case or example. Imagine you do not know what a chair is, and I show you one picture of a chair to understand what it is. Now compare this with being given two pictures, one that is a chair and one that is not a chair, say a stool. Surely you will be able to discern what makes a chair a better chair by comparing than by looking at just one example. For the same reason, I'm using two examples, good and bad, of productive failure tasks to distill features of what makes a good task. I'm practicing what I am preaching. And this is why a good productive failure task uses at least two cases or examples that novices can compare and contrast. Ideally, good tasks should include contrasts that can be intuitively and even better if perceptually seen, compared, and examined, which allows learners to evaluate their own solutions. As we saw in chapter 6, research shows that we
Sir, are you reading?
We do not learn, and designing the task to include variation becomes key. There is no way of doing this. From example, in the good task, learners should focus on designing variation into the task rather than on calculating variation directly in the domain. In the good task, nudge them to focus on the distribution of the data. Alternatively, such invariant relations can be designed on structure and stories. For example, keeping structure constant but changing the stories, as we saw in the radiation problem and the general problem in chapter 6, or vice versa. The same could be done with multiple representations, for example, giving the same information but in different representations, such as drawings, tables, not tablets, tables, text, simulations, and so on. All of these must be carefully designed because the task designed for such variation and therefore is not a good productive task. Feature 7. So we asked for 7 features. This is the 7th one. Minimize conceptual load. Students should focus on designing ideas and exploring their properties rather than on calculating or applying solutions. Keep the text simple and the numbers easy to compute, graphs or pictures easy to discern, and so on. Lower the computational load so that students can focus on the critical aspects of the problems and its solutions. Chances are, if you did your own list, comparing your own with the list above would in and of itself have been a learning experience. Note also how the features do not contain any information or specificity about the domain itself. That is, the features are not tied to mathematics or any other domain. They remain domain general, meaning that they can be used to design productive failure tasks in the domain. I'm going to go back to what was written here. So, Rajini has actually written 5 to 7 features of a good task. Relevance, inclusion of the second element to compare and contrast, practically possible task, moderate difficulty level, positivity and motivation for completion, specification and clarity, opportunity for developing multiple ideas. Thank you, Rajni. And then she has gone to compare them with a bad task. Good task looks for multiple ways to determine better play, which makes sense contrary to the standard deviation of the player in bad task. So this is the first comparison. Amy and Ben, 2 players, in good tasks give the scope to the learners to compare, whereas single player's data in bad task does not allow the learners to explore and think out of the box. Third one, the bad task fixes the previous knowledge, hence is practically not possible for the weak learners. By the way, I'm reading from the WhatsApp chat. In the good task, there is opportunity for all kind of learners to work with different perspectives. 4. The bad task asks for standard deviation directly, which may be too easy for those who know the 6 steps of calculating it, but will be too difficult for those who don't know. But the good task allows all kinds of learners to research and think critically. Number 5. The good task carries the motivation and reduces mental pressure at the end while saying just be creative without worrying about right or wrong. Whereas the bad task increases the pressure on the academically weak in absence of such motivation. The good task clearly reflects the specially desired task of finding different ways to determine more consistent players. In the case of bad tasks, learners are not aware about the reason for standard deviation calculation. And finally, good task carries variety of angles to work upon, but the bad task fixes the learners towards the pre-existing steps of getting it, and they hardly get any scope of creativity. So bad task is typically you will give a question, this should be the answer, and you will pass if you do this. While a good task would be something which will challenge them, which will make them think, They'll all give different answers to reach the same destination. So thank you, Rajini. Can we unmute Rajini Dondial for a minute, please? Rajini, are you in?
Yes, I'll do that.
Manisha, is Rajini there?
I'll just check, sir, 1 minute. Yes, sir, she's there.
I wanted to ask her a question if she can come in. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, she's allowed to talk.
Good evening and Jai Hind, sir.
Rajini, can we have you in the chat box?
Yes, sir. Jai Hind, sir.
Perhaps I can't get across to you in audio. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to pause here and I'm going to write inside WhatsApp and ask Rajni a question. Can you
Yes,
all
sir.
switch into your WhatsApp?
She's saying Jai Hind to you. Perhaps there is some connectivity issue, so you are not able to hear her. Rajni ma'am, perhaps sir is having some connection trouble, so it's
Yeah,
not.
ma'am. Yeah, ma'am. I could understand, ma'am.
Yeah.
So he's in WhatsApp, so I am answering, sir.
Yeah. He's not audible to me also.
Yeah, ma'am.
No, you'll get it now. You
Yes,
can get
sir.
me now.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Yes, sir.
So I'm on actually different machine. So that's why I was a little confused. Sorry for your all this trouble and your patience. So Rajni,
Thank
I'm
you.
going to ask you one simple question, which I
Yes,
want you
sir.
to answer.
Yeah.
You know, people are asking me assignments and people are asking me how many. And here you are sharing your thoughts, hearts. Are you thinking of this question that I'm supposed to do assignments to learn?
Sir, simultaneously, I am working on assignments, and I am going step by step as you are reading the chapters and some points that you are highlighting, and it is clicking on my mind also. So I am finding it better to respond on those points so that I don't forget. And it will also keep a link between my thoughts. So I'm going to write all these in WhatsApp also so that sir can understand. Sir can hear me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can hear you. So, I think what's very fascinating, what you just said, that you're
Yes, sir.
actually designing the steps. And
Yes.
if we are able to do that, I think that's a fair amount of success. And let me
Yes.
assure you, just by one person responding with this depth,
Yes, sir.
it means a lot for us. Thank you so much, Rajni.
Thank you, sir. Thank
You
you for the
answered
motivation, sir.
you've answered multiple questions in what you've just said. That
Mhm.
design happens in steps. So
Yes,
you
sir.
shown me in your conversation the steps, the 4 A's.
Yes, sir.
That's one part which you are giving us very clearly. Second, as you said, if you go step by step, a step at a time, it's easier to accomplish tasks. And that is the core thought behind productive failure. Design a task which makes people take steps. Don't design a task for people to reach immediately to where they have to reach. If you feel that reaching somewhere is your goal. So thank you for that. We'll try and read a little more. We have time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you so much. Am I audible to everyone? Manisha, am I audible well?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yeah. So we will do designing the participation. I'm sorry about the poor audio and bandwidth. It just so happens, like I said, I'm in a foreign location, so I'm trying to do my best. Designing the participation. Once the task has been designed, we need to design how learners go about working on the task. Here is a designer. We need to answer 2 questions. Let's see what the questions are. Do learners work alone or together in small groups? How do we facilitate their problem solving process? Working alone or together? Thus far, studies have shown that productive failure is effective in both configuration, whether learners work individually or in small groups, typically 2 to 3 people. For example, Claudia Mazziotti and colleagues showed in 2019 that whether students worked alone or in small groups, there was no difference in their learning. However, in 2021, meta-analysis led by my then doctoral student, Tanmay Sinha, found that working together during the generation phase of productive failure had an overall set pieces to get a more complete picture. In this way, collaboration supports the mechanism of activation of prior knowledge. As individuals recall and share information they already know, which can be new or enlightening. It also helps us in the awareness of gaps, as working with others can highlight areas of the problem at hand that are missing or need more attention. In turn, building the positive effect for working together to bridge the gap. 3 of the A's: activation, awareness, and effect. Info in this process, thereby setting the learners up for the 4th A assembly later on. However, collaboration also comes at a cost. While each person brings their own set of knowledge and perspectives, not everyone may be skilled or experienced in working as a part of a team. Not everyone knows how to collaborate, and not everyone wants to collaborate either, for all sorts of reasons. And even if one wants and knows how to collaborate, collaboration is intrinsically hard. One has to coordinate understandings with others, and this takes time and effort. So here I'll pause and mention that that's why I'm saying that you can doing assignments together or doing assignments separately. These are some pros and cons which you can evaluate. Some might start struggling with communicating their ideas, or they may be used to working independently and find it difficult to integrate their approach with others. Collaboration in this sense is not just about bringing multiple ideas and perspectives together. It is also about effectively communicating, coordinating, and understanding each other's contributions. Therefore, when using collaboration as a way of participation, we need to make sure that we help people learn to collaborate so that they can collaborate to learn. We help people learn to collaborate so that they can collaborate to learn. Another variant that often works well is not to choose between working alone or together. Instead, one can work alone and then together. This allows everyone to generate their own ideas and solutions first, and then come together or a group to share and build upon each other's ideas. Facilitating the problem solving. The benefits of generating ideas and solutions can be amplified if learners can be supported with effective facilitation. If you want to know what good facilitation looks like, look no further than the Socrates dialogue in chapter 4. That is a masterful level of skill, and as you might have guessed, a level that is good to aim for but hard to achieve. Therefore, in working with hundreds of teachers and trainers implementing productive failure, I've designed a simplified two-step facilitation scheme that one can use for facilitating learners as they engage in generating ideas and solutions. First, explain your idea. And second, hack your idea. Explain your idea. For every idea or a solution that the learner generates, a great way to support them in their thinking is to ask them to explain their idea to you of their peers. It is one thing to generate an idea, it is quite another to be able to explain it. This simple prompt forces the learner to find ways to communicate to another person their thinking and reasoning in a way that the other can understand. For example, in the basketball problem of chapter 2, figure 2.1, when students try to use the averages to solve the problem, asking them to explain their solution and why they think using average is a good idea for measuring consistency forces them to articulate their reasoning. And then they do that. Two things happen. First, the preparation to explain itself has cognitive and affective benefits. It motivates one to select, organize, and think of structuring the information in a way that will make it easier to understand. This is a cognitively demanding task. Therefore, even without actually explaining, the preparation alone leads to deeper understanding of the idea itself. If you have tutored, mentored, taught, or prepared a presentation, you can probably relate to this. Just the preparation alone helps to deepen our understanding of the content even before we can deliver it. Second, the act of delivery in and of itself has cognitive and metacognitive questions triggers reflection on our own knowledge, resulting in analysis broadly support the principle that on both counts, preparation and delivery, asking people to explain their ideas helps them deepen their own knowledge of the ideas. Of course, sometimes such explanations may not come easy for learners, in which case, and as it was with collaboration, it is good that we help learners learn how to explain so that they can explain to learn. Sorry. Second, hack your idea. Just pausing here. I'm not reading the second book, Art of Thinking Clearly. Why? We have announced that from 1st November, we are starting Masterclass 2026. And Masterclass 2026 is going to be Art of Thinking Clearly. What we'll try and do between now and 31st of October, try and wrap up productive failure. Give you time to attempt your assignments on productive failure so that you are able to do them by the month of December. Give you time to do research. And in the meanwhile, when you're doing all this, we will read Art of Thinking Clearly. Because if you can think clearly, you'll do a better job. So it's programmed like that. And we encourage you to please sign up for Masterclass 2026. Masterclass 2026 is a paid masterclass. It's an annual subscription of 3,000. You'll get over 50 sessions with us. We do 52 weeks. We read throughout the year. You get support, you get conversations, you get mentoring. We help you create, we help you design, we help you publish your documentation. We help you develop an identity for yourself. Last year, when we started Masterclass 25, our main sponsor was the Sunbeam Group of Schools. They sponsored over 50 teachers, and that's how Masterclass 25 happened. And as we got along, we opened Masterclass 25 to a very large audience, and we registered over 1,000 people in the open space in the webinar. And we've been having roughly 90 to 100 come every Saturday. And I'm sure post the session, many play the video. So hack your idea. When we generate an idea or a solution, we generate it for a given context or situation of the problem we are trying to solve. We tend to focus so much on that particular situation or context that we might miss examining and generalizability or robustness of our idea. That is, we may overlook the potential weakness of limitations that only become apparent when the idea is tested in different, often unexpected scenarios. Thus, generating ideas is not enough. We need to learn how to hack our own ideas to see how robust they are. Does the idea work only for the given context or situation, or can it work for other contexts and situations? Is there a context or situation when the idea or solution would not work? Asking questions like this form the second step in the facilitation process. Helping learners hack their ideas can help them think more broadly about their ideas and solutions. For example, for the basketball problem in chapter 2, figure 2.1. When students try to or would break down, really stretches their thinking. Deliberately seeking the idea does not work anymore, forces them to consider if two players can have the same range yet different consistencies. An even more interesting situation where a player with a similar range may in fact be more inconsistent. Think across different contexts and situation demands a deep dive into the structure of the problem and the solution. Without it, we cannot test the generalization of our ideas. And if we should find counterfactual contexts and situations where our ideas break down or not work, then that is powerful for learning. Therefore, as soon as someone generates an idea and has been given an opportunity to explain it to others, a good follow-up is to ask them to consider the limits of their ideas and solutions. It is the limits, the crucial step. That not to validate that the system works under normal conditions, but rather to find conditions under which it doesn't work. To think like an adversary and exploit any vulnerabilities that the system factual serves a dual purpose. First, it identifies the boundaries and limitations of the current solutions or system, provides valuable insights into areas that require improvement or reinforcement. Second, it fosters the development of more resilient and adaptable solutions or systems that can withstand a wider array of challenges. Just as a hacker tests a security system to find its breaking points and improve its defenses, we must help learners develop the habit of rigorously testing their ideas and solutions against potential failure scenarios to ensure they are robust, versatile, and applicable in a variety of contexts. This process of challenging and questioning leads to better ideas, deeper understanding, and better preparation for subsequent learning from instruction. Explaining your own idea and hacking your own idea. Two simple steps that give large returns on learning. The more we can get learners to cultivate the habit of explaining and hacking their own ideas, the more they learn how failure productive failure. If learners can develop these habits, then the benefits go beyond productive failure as well. For these good habits for learning in life in general. So hacking is, or testing as they would like to call it, leads to deeper understanding. So what we're going to do, designing social surround. So we will do this next time. I will add the bookmark. Let me just get this there. Manisha, please take the bookmark also. I may not have this computer, so I may not be able to remember where we ended. Designing the social surround. That's where we've ended. Highlight it and keep it. Just give me a moment. I'll get back to the Zoom session. Yeah, I'm back. I hope we had a good session. I'm sorry about this limited speed and bandwidth because I'm perhaps using a system which is, I think, almost 10, 12 years old. Unlike what I have in the studio, I have a very good generation system there. I hope this worked and conversations came to you in your chat. I am happy if someone can say that the conversations reached you and today's session helped you in any way. On a rate of 1 to 5, now think how today's session helped you move towards clarity of thought. Question: how today's session helped you move towards clarity of thought? Scale 1 to 5. How today's session has helped you move to clarity of thought? Scale 1 to 5. Thank you. Good. I'm glad most of us are getting it. We've got a fair sample of acknowledgements. It's been a wonderful evening here. Of course, it's late night for me and it's evening for you. Thank you so much. And do forgive us for the bad reception, for the sound quality. I said that productive failure is when you can do your things in a new environment. So for me, this itself was a productive failure exercise, is to come here, set it up, communicate with you with the limitations, try and close the session. On that note, enjoy the product. We will meet next Saturday again, definitely. And what's important is that we are only reading Productive Failure for the next few weeks. Art of Thinking Clearly, we are asking you to please get a copy and read. In your WhatsApp conversation, we will add Psycho-Cybernetics 360. We will not add Art of Thinking Clearly. So whenever I get an opportunity, particularly on weekdays, because on weekends we have enough happening. So on weekdays, I'll try and give you 2-3 chapters from Cybernetics 360. Thank you so much. Thank you, Shalu. Thank you, Manisha. Thank you to all my panelists. Thank you, Meenakshi. And yes, warm greetings for all of you from our whole family here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Enjoy. Bye-bye. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.